What is up? I'm Dak. Thank you guys for joining me on the Buckham Pod. We got another episode for you guys. We're gonna be talking tight ends. Speaking of tight ends, I'm looking at the tight end room and it is an eyesore. It's a glaring hole in the worst way. The Denver Broncos, yet they resigned the majority of that room back, right? We have the same players coming back for another season. Unfortunately, some of those contracts you're able to get off of, there's no guarantees. Nate Atkins, Lucas Kroll, you can potentially move off those guys, if we find upgrades. But this episode is more geared towards the draft. The Broncos need a tone setter at the tight end position, specifically a wide tight end. So the Broncos' current tight end room, we re-signed Adam Troutman to a 3-year deal. He's supposed to be the blocking tight end. Evan Ingram, who's supposed to be our legitimate receiving threat. Maybe Davis Webb unlocks Evan Ingram and utilizes him more in the passing game than we saw last season. I'm sure he has some wrinkles up his sleeve to get the most out of him, right? That's why I think Sean Payton went towards Davis Webb, the offensive genius that he is, up and coming star. So I feel sick. I'm just going to look at these numbers right here. The underwhelming production out of this tight end room is, I think, towards the bottom of the league. Let's call it what it is. 78 receptions, 720 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yikes. I'm not thrilled by those numbers by any means. You could look around the league. I think maybe Travis Kelce had better numbers, right? You could go down the list of tight ends in this league who produced more than all of those tight ends mentioned. So I know a lot of folks are really intrigued with the thought of adding Eli Stowers because he is a legitimate receiving threat in out of the prospects coming into the NFL. Um, he's an exciting player. Don't get me wrong; it's not a knock against him by any means, but we're not going to ask another move tight end, which Eli Stowers is, to add to this room because I feel like you need to build a foundation, and you need tight ends who can complement one another to really get the full potential out of this offense. So I think having an F tight end and drafting one would be a luxury at this time. I feel like right now the Denver Broncos don't have that luxury with their tight end room. They don't have the structure per se to have an Eli Stowers. I'll call it what it is. So with that being said, though, I want to bring up some numbers. I made a post on X specifically geared towards the tight end room. You check it out. This is what I got off of the SIS data hub. Adam Troutman, he is supposed to be our run blocking tight end, right? We're supposed to thrive with him there. That's why Sean Payton gives him the 3-year deal to stay in Denver. Well, he had 8 blown blocks, 2.9% after 274 run block snaps. Okay. Evan Ingram had 46 run block snaps, 1 blown block, 2.2%. And I know Troutman is supposed to be the blocking tight end. He was underwhelming last year. Maybe he improves. I don't know. I felt like there were guys on the market that we could have looked towards. The Broncos felt otherwise. Charlie Corlar, Daniel Bellinger, those are guys that I liked. But I know that Ingram was brought in to be the legitimate receiving threat. But it's kind of unfortunate because if your blocking tight end isn't clearly separating himself in terms of blocking, that's an issue. So I don't know. I feel like it's an underwhelming room at this point. I'm still hoping maybe we get a deal done with Njoku to bring him in. Um, I think there was a few teams in on Njoku still. Ravens, Patriots. I don't know about the Panthers. I know they were in on him. Hopefully Denver decides to look his direction as well. I think he'd be a better addition than Troutman, but it doesn't matter because Troutman is going to be here for the next 3 years. Um, yeah, so that's unfortunate, but that's what the tight end room is. That's where we're at right now with this tight end room. Much improvements needed to be had, but remember the days, you guys, with Sean Payton when this offense was thriving. They had two legitimate tight ends who thrived, right? They complemented each other. Jimmy Graham, Jeremy Shockey, you got to see them ball out. Sean Payton's offenses were humming. They were firing all cylinders. I really like these guys. We need our Jeremy Shockey. If you want to talk role player, he did it all. He got nasty. He got physical in the run game, but also he was a pass catching threat in the offense, right? While, Evan Ingram, excuse me, Evan Ingram, Jimmy Graham was your move tight end. And I think with Evan Ingram, he's on a 1 year deal left. But if you paired him with a legit wide tight end, and I know when it comes to tight ends, it's probably one of the hardest positions to evaluate in terms of their usage in college. Um, and it's specifically in this class, the consensus where tight ends are ranked, it's all over the place. Many analysts have, Max Clare over so and so. Oscar Dalps is probably rated too low, in my opinion, because of his usage. Yeah, it's just all the way across the board. I feel like people are having a hard time and truly struggling. And then it takes about 2 to 3 years to really develop a tight end, to get the most out of him. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting. It's interesting to see how we can go. But what I would say is looking at this tight end room, the gold standard in the NFL for me is George Kittle, who is a Y, right? Dominant run blocker, elite after the catch. He's legitimate, right? He opens a lot for that 49ers defense, even in his prime. Shoot, even now, I feel like he'd be a lot better than what we have, if I'm being honest. You got Mark Andrews, you got Trey McBride, who's also legit, and still ascending. Unfortunately, he's with the Cardinals. He would have been a guy I would love to trade for. I'm sure we had to sell the farm for him, but we got Jalen Waddle. He'll hopefully help us out too in the passing game. But moving onward, I think we need a dynamic tight end, right? Somebody who's physical, blocks defensive ends, can set the edge. Um, and then you get, your move tight end, like say Evan Ingram, who's a mismatch weapon, who can stress the defense. If you have two players who can complement each other, man, you're sitting pretty. Okay, with a true Y and F, you can line up in 12 personnel, which Sean Payton has mentioned that he would like to do more of. Defense thinks run, and you can run, outside zone, and then you can run play action if you get them, you get those crossers, some of the linebackers, if they're keying in on the run. So I think without a Y, we've seen the Denver Broncos go pass heavy, and the stats speak for themselves. Bo Nix led the NFL last year with 612 pass attempts, right? I feel like this offense really struggled without having a legitimate tight end. The Y, somebody who's dynamic. It's very telling, without having a Y, what the offense is doing. So what I would say too is, I would like to see more play action. Having a Y gives you that ability. And then we needed to improve in the red zone. Red zone efficiency goes way up. You have that extra blocker for power run. Uh, Having that Y, like I said, play actions. The tight end can leak out, and then it helps keep your quarterback clean and confident, right? Especially for young quarterbacks like Bo Nix, you got those quick reads. You got him as a safety outlet. But what happens without it? Jesus, you get the problems you run into with having Evan Ingram and no real Y. is you get predictable formations. We saw it firsthand last season, right? A weak run support. We struggled in the run game, especially when J.K. Dobbins went down. Um, Middle of the field gets crowded for sure. There's no real threat in the middle of the field. Something that I would like to see more of us attack more of in this offense. So a wide tight end, I think, makes your offense honest, while a tight end makes your offense dangerous. Like I said, it's about having that foundation, right? Without both, you're limited. Let's call it what it is. You're limited. So I wanted to kind of talk about some potential players that I would like to see Denver invest um, in terms of the draft. So guys like Oscar Delp, probably the best run blocking tight end hands down in general. And Oscar Delp, I think he was over 200 and some yards. I mean, excuse me, 200 and some snaps inline blocking. I think he was, if not the most inline blocking snaps out of all the tight ends in this class. He's legitimate. You saw him run the 40. He's explosive. So can you imagine him in this offense? Um, Adding a new wrinkle, a new toy to pair with Evan Ingram if we, decide to keep Evan Ingram, which I think we're leaning towards that direction, right? I mean, I feel like nobody should be safe, right? So yeah, Oscar Delp's a guy. Max Clare, I feel like he's like your Y type F hybrid. I looked at the snaps; it was pretty split down the middle in terms of Max Clare's production. Uh, at the combine, they talked to him at the presser. Somebody asked him about who he models his game after. He talked about George Kittle, a guy that I just mentioned. Can you imagine? And I mean, Max Clare is underrated in terms of his athleticism. I feel um, he's a legit. We need somebody who can get that yak, another threat. And I feel like he does need to improve his blocking. I think there's been some times where Max Clare, in terms of his technique, hand placement, needs some improvement. Another guy who, I mean, Jesus, I didn't expect him to have this type of athleticism. I just couldn't really get myself sold on him. He showed up at the combine and was pretty athletic. Sam Roush. Shame on me. I mean, he's legit. And he's another inline blocking tight end that I would like to see added to this offense. He's the tight end out of Stanford, legitimate talent. Um, Man, there's not too many players I feel like come out of Stanford, in my opinion. Besides, the great um, Christian McCaffrey, Denver native type of thing. So I'm gonna pull up Sam Roush real quick. So Sam Roush inline snaps, excuse me, had 297 inline snaps while he was lined up in the slot 132 times. That's a guy that you want in your offense, right? Contested catch rate 40%. Could he improve there? Sure. I think a lot of these guys, they're gonna need to refine their skills. Of course, they're not coming into the NFL as finished products. But another player that we could look at is, I was gonna go back to Max Clare. Yeah, his inline snaps. Said he was a Y hybrid type. 142 inline snaps, while his slot snaps were 135. So pretty legit. So Max Clear's legit. I like him a lot. Talk about contested catch rate, 66.7% according to PFF here. He's a guy you can go to. They graded his run blocking grade at a 71.6, whatever that means to you. Some people like PFF's grades, the way they run their analytics and all that. Some people don't. Um, I just like to share some of these stats. I like PFF for the most part. They have some good tools, to go by. I wanted to look at another tight end, Eli Raritan. He's a guy that I feel like is a little slept on in this class. First and foremost, this guy is 6'7", 252. And looking at his stats, inline snaps 144 and in the slot 148. He's solid. He's another guy that I would like to look at. And unfortunately, Oscar Dalp is ranked 215, which is too low for my liking. That's one of the things, the knock that I have on PFF is their rankings are not the best, in my opinion. But inline snaps, and I know this is a lot of his usage, 238 snaps. And he was in the slot 77 times. His production is fairly low, but I feel like he's going to be a better NFL player than he is as a prospect, in my opinion, because of the usage, low usage. He had 28 targets, 261 yards, one touchdown. Not enough, right? For some people. And hey, that might help Denver out. Maybe he drops, but he ran the 40. He did pretty good. Another guy I think that Denver talked to, it looks like, was John Michael Gillenborg out of Wyoming. 124 inline snaps to 90 slot snaps. Another guy that's low, had low production, but hey, maybe you take a flyer on him in the later rounds. I think he's a day 3 type of player. 211 receiving yards, one touchdown. He's 6'5", 251. We have some options at tight end. I just think we need to get better. I would say we do need to stay away and I know it's unfortunate because I do like their skill set. But I feel like they're not going to fit with what we need right now in terms of the offense. Eli Stowers, Michael Trigg, I like them. Not a knock against them. It's just I feel like with what we're lacking and what we truly need, give me a why. Because offenses aren't built on just weapons alone. They're built on structure. They thrive when you have the right structure. You've seen it firsthand. Look at the back in the Sean Payton days when he had a legitimate tight ends. And I know that the times have changed. I get that. But I mean, if you don't have a foundation, you're going to be stuck. The tight end room has been a question mark for quite some time, right? Since the Julius Thomas days, it's been a thorn in our side. It's been unfortunate, man. We've been roaming the desert. The tight end carousel continues in Denver. We got rid of the quarterback carousel. Let's worry about the tight end carousel and getting that situated. I would like for us to find our long-term answer, whether we look at tight end at pick 62, pick 108, 111 or whatever. We need to get our answer. There are some talented guys that I would love to see in a Broncos uniform, but ultimately that needs to get situated. We need to get better. I mean, we got Jalen Waddle. It's to be seen what other moves are made. And right now we're adding to the 90-man roster, right? We're not creating the 53. So like I was talking about earlier, some of those contracts when it comes to the tight end and Lucas Kroll, Nate Atkins, maybe you find guys you can move off those two, and find better upgrades, So it's going to be interesting to see how we attack this draft. But give me some of your names, who we should add at the tight end position. I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm Dak. And remember, if it ain't about the Broncos, buck 'em. Mile high salute to y'all. Until next